The silk organza gown rustled like dead leaves as Emma Dawson collapsed against the altar rail. Her white-gloved fingers gripping the polished wood so hard her knuckles ached. The small church in Republic, Kansas, built only 3 years prior in 1875, still smelled of fresh pine and varnish. But now the scent mixed with the wilting roses she'd arranged herself just that morning, creating a sickly sweet perfume that made her stomach turn. She pressed her forehead against the rail and let the sobs come freely, no longer caring that her carefully pinned curls were coming loose or that her tears were staining the expensive French lace her mother had spent 6 months saving to purchase from the mercantile. "Miss." A deep voice echoed through the empty chapel. "Miss, are you all right?" Emma didn't bother looking up. What did it matter who saw her now? The whole town already knew. Richard Hamilton, son of the wealthiest rancher in Marshall County, had taken one look at his bride waiting at the altar and turned on his polished heel, walking right back down that aisle and out into the bright June sunshine. His father had followed, muttering apologies that held no real conviction, while his mother had simply lifted her chin with satisfaction. They'd never wanted Richard to marry a seamstress's daughter anyway. The other guests had filtered out in uncomfortable silence, their pitying glances worse than any words they could have spoken. "Miss Dawson," the voice came closer, accompanied by the distinct jingle of spurs against the wooden floorboards. "Emma." She finally raised her head, wiping at her swollen eyes with the back of her hand, smearing the rouge her mother had carefully applied that morning. Standing in the aisle between the rough-hewn pews was Tyler Zimmerman, still holding his hat in his hands like he'd just walked in from the street. Which she realized he probably had. Dust from the cattle trails still clung to his worn leather vest, and his dark hair looked like he'd tried to comb it with his fingers on the way over. She recognized him vaguely from town, though they'd never spoken more than passing pleasantries. He worked one of the smaller ranches east of Republic, running cattle up to the railhead in Abilene when the season was right. "What do you want?" Emma's voice came out harsh and broken. She struggled to her feet, her wedding dress catching on the altar rail. "Come to see the spectacle." The fool girl who actually thought Richard Hamilton would marry her. Tyler took a step forward, his hazel eyes steady and calm. He was tall, she noticed, with the kind of sun-weathered face that came from years of honest work outdoors. Maybe 25 or 26, just a few years older than her own 22. "I came because I saw what happened, saw him walk out, figured somebody ought to check on you." "Well, you've checked. I'm humiliated but alive. You can go tell everyone at the saloon." She tried to move past him, but her dress was hopelessly tangled in the rail. She yanked at it, hearing stitches pop, and felt fresh tears spring to her eyes. "This dress cost my mother everything she had. Hold on." Tyler set his hat on the nearest pew and knelt beside her, his calloused fingers working the delicate fabric free from where it had caught on a rough nail. "There, just a small tear. A good seamstress could fix it so you'd never know." "I'm a good seamstress," Emma said bitterly. "Lot of good it did me." Tyler stood, looking at her with an expression she couldn't quite read. Behind him, sunlight streamed through the simple glass windows, casting patterns across the floor. Somewhere outside, a horse whinnied and a wagon rattled past. Normal sounds. Life going on as if her entire world hadn't just crumbled. "Miss Dawson," Tyler said slowly, turning his hat over in his hands, "I have a proposition for you." Emma laughed, a sharp, painful sound. "If you're about to proposition me like some dance hall girl, Tyler Zimmerman, I'll slap you across this church." "No, madam, nothing like that." He cleared his throat, and she noticed a flush creeping up his neck above his collar. "I'm talking about marriage, real and proper." The world seemed to tilt sideways. Emma grabbed the pew to steady herself. What? You need a husband. The whole town knows you were supposed to get married today. Your folks probably spent money they didn't have on this wedding, and now you'll be the subject of gossip for months, maybe years. Tyler spoke matter-of-factly, but his eyes were kind. I need a wife. My ranch is small but profitable, and it gets mighty lonely out there. We could help each other. You don't even know me. Emma stared at him like he'd grown a second head. This is insane. I know you're hardworking. I've seen the dresses and shirts you make, and their quality. I know you're brave, standing up there waiting even when Hamilton was late. I know you didn't run or make a scene when he left. You kept your dignity. Tyler took a breath. I know that's more than most folks can say. And I know I can offer you a decent life if you're willing. Why would you do this? Emma's voice dropped to a whisper. You could court any girl in town properly. Why would you want someone else's leavings? Tyler's jaw tightened. You're nobody's leavings. Richard Hamilton is a fool, and what he did was the act of a coward. You deserve better than that. He met her eyes. Look, I'm not promising you a love match, but I can promise you respect, a home, and my name. Sometimes that's enough to build something real on. Emma's mind raced. Her mother was waiting back at their small house, probably crying into her apron. Her father would be staring at the bills for the reception that would never happen, at the food that would go to waste. The whispers had already started, she knew. Poor Emma Dawson, not good enough for the Hamilton boy. She'd be pitied, scorned, unmarriageable. And Tyler was right. Her parents had spent money they couldn't afford on this wedding. But to marry a stranger, then again, what had Richard really been to her? They'd courted for 6 months, always under the watchful eye of chaperones. They discussed literature and weather and town gossip, but had they ever truly known each other? He'd kissed her exactly twice, both times so chaste and brief she'd wondered if he'd really wanted to at all. And in the end, he'd left her standing at the altar in front of God and everyone. The preacher's still here, Tyler said quietly. Saw him in the back room when I came in. If you want to do this, we could do it now. Today. Use the wedding that's already paid for. You'd still be a bride, just with a different groom. This is madness, Emma whispered, but even as she said it, she felt something shift inside her. A wild, reckless courage she didn't know she possessed. Why shouldn't she? What did she have to lose that Richard hadn't already taken? Maybe, Tyler agreed. But sometimes the maddest things make the most sense. He held out his hand. I'll be good to you, Emma Dawson. I give you my word on that. You'll never want for food or shelter, and I'll never raise my hand to you or speak to you with disrespect. That's a better promise than a lot of women get. Emma looked at his outstretched hand. It was scarred and work-worn, the hand of a man who knew hard labor. Nothing like Richard's soft, pampered fingers. But there was strength there, and honesty in Tyler's steady gaze. She thought of facing the town tomorrow, walking down the street in her everyday dress, enduring the whispers and the pitying looks. She thought of watching her mother try to hide her disappointment, of seeing her father age under the weight of wasted money and a daughter's shame. Or she could walk back down that aisle on Tyler Zimmerman's arm as his wife. She could hold her head high and show Richard Hamilton and his insufferable family that she didn't need them, that she was worth marrying after all. All right, she heard herself say. Yes, let's do it. Tyler's eyes widened slightly as if he hadn't quite believed she'd agree. Then a slow smile spread across his face, transforming it entirely. You're sure? Before I change my mind, go get the preacher. Emma smoothed down her dress with shaking hands. And Tyler, thank you for this. For your kindness. No need for thanks. We'll be helping each other. Tyler squeezed her hand once gently, then turned and strode toward the back of the church, his spurs jingling with each step. Emma stood alone in the sanctuary, her heart pounding so hard she thought it might burst through her ribs. What was she doing? Marrying a man she'd spoken to perhaps 3 times in her life. But as she looked down at her wedding dress, at the flowers she'd arranged, at the church her family had scraped together every penny to rent for the day, she felt her resolve harden. This was her wedding day, and she would be married, come hell or high water. Reverend Matthews emerged from the back room with Tyler, looking confused and concerned. He was an older man with wire-rimmed spectacles and a perpetual expression of mild surprise. "Miss Dawson, Tyler here says you want to proceed with the ceremony. But surely, given the circumstances, you might want to wait, take some time to think about this." "Reverend, everything is already arranged. The church is decorated, the license has been paid for, and I'm wearing a wedding dress." Emma lifted her chin. "The only thing that's changed is the groom, and frankly, I think I've gotten a better one." Tyler's smile widened at that, and the Reverend looked between them, clearly uncertain. "This is highly irregular. Your parents, Emma, what will they say?" "They'll say I'm married instead of humiliated," Emma replied. She was surprised by the strength in her own voice. "Please, Reverend Matthews, I know what I'm doing." That was a lie. She had absolutely no idea what she was doing. But she knew what she was running from, and right now that seemed like enough. The Reverend sighed and opened his Bible. "Very well, but I want it on record that I counseled waiting. Tyler Zimmerman, come stand here. Emma, you're already in position." He cleared his throat and began the familiar words. "Dearly beloved, we are gathered here today in the sight of God and these witnesses to join together this man and this woman in holy matrimony." There were no witnesses, Emma realized. The church was empty except for the 3 of them. But perhaps that was better. This way it felt private, intimate even. Not the spectacle her almost wedding to Richard had been. She barely heard the words of the ceremony. Her mind was too busy racing ahead, thinking about what came next. She'd have to go home and tell her parents. They'd have to move her things to Tyler's ranch. She'd be sleeping under a stranger's roof tonight, eating at his table, living his life. "Do you, Tyler Joseph Zimmerman, take this woman to be your lawfully wedded wife, to have and to hold from this day forward for better or for worse, for richer or for poorer, in sickness and in health, to love and to cherish, till death do you part?" "I do." Tyler's voice was firm and clear. "And do you, Emma Rose Dawson, take this man to be your lawfully wedded husband, to have and to hold from this day forward for better or for worse, for richer or for poorer, in sickness and in health, to love and to cherish, till death do you part?" Emma opened her mouth and found her voice caught in her throat. This was it, the moment that would change everything. She looked at Tyler, really looked at him for the first time. His face was open, honest, patient. He wasn't rushing her. He'd wait for her answer as long as it took, she realized. And somehow that made all the difference. "I do. By the power vested in me by the state of Kansas and the Methodist Church, I now pronounce you man and wife." Reverend Matthews closed his Bible. "Tyler, you may kiss your bride." Emma's heart jumped. She hadn't thought about this part. Tyler stepped closer, and she noticed he smelled like leather and sage and summer wind. He cupped her face gently with one calloused hand and leaned down slowly, giving her time to pull away if she wanted to. She didn't pull away. His lips met her softly, a brief, chaste kiss that still somehow made her pulse race. When he pulled back, his eyes were warm. "Hello, Mrs. Zimmerman, Mrs. Zimmerman, Emma Zimmerman." It sounded strange and foreign and thrilling all at once. "Hello, Mr. Zimmerman." The Reverend coughed politely. "I'll just go fill out the certificate. Congratulations to you both, though I still think this was rather hasty." He disappeared into the back room, muttering under his breath. Emma and Tyler stood in the empty church, suddenly and completely married. The afternoon sun slanted through the windows at a different angle now, golden and warm. Outside, Republic went about its business, unaware that everything had changed. "I should go tell my parents," Emma said finally. "They'll be wondering where I am. I'll come with you." Tyler offered his arm, and she took it, feeling the solid strength of him beneath the worn fabric of his shirt. "Might be better if we faced them together." They walked out of the church into the bright Kansas sunshine. The main street of Republic stretched before them, dust devils swirling between the buildings. The mercantile, the saloon, the livery stable, all the familiar landmarks of Emma's life. But everything looked different now, seen through the eyes of a married woman. Several townspeople stopped and stared as they passed. Mrs. Henderson from the general store actually gasped, her hand flying to her mouth. Mr. Parker, who ran the livery, removed his hat and nodded respectfully. Word would spread like wildfire, Emma knew. By supper time, everyone in Republic would know that Emma Dawson had married Tyler Zimmerman in the same church where Richard Hamilton had abandoned her just hours before. Let them talk. For the first time that day, Emma felt something other than crushing humiliation. She felt defiant, brave, maybe even a little bit proud. Her parents' house sat at the end of Maple Street, a small whitewashed structure with blue shutters her father had painted last spring. The tiny yard was neat and tidy, her mother's pride and joy. As they approached, Emma saw her mother sitting on the porch steps, her face buried in her hands. Her father stood behind her, one hand on her shoulder, looking older than Emma had ever seen him. "Mama, Papa," Emma called out, and her mother's head jerked up. "Emma." Sarah Dawson scrambled to her feet, her eyes red and swollen. "Oh, my darling girl, I'm so sorry. That horrible, horrible boy. How dare he do that to you?" She rushed forward, then stopped abruptly as she noticed Tyler. "What's he doing here?" "Mama, Papa, this is Tyler Zimmerman." Emma took a deep breath. "My husband." The silence that followed was so complete Emma could hear a meadowlark singing 3 houses away. Her father, Robert Dawson, blinked several times as if trying to clear his vision. Her mother simply stared. "You're what?" Sarah finally managed. "We were married. Just now in the church. Reverend Matthews performed the ceremony." Emma held up her left hand, though she realized there was no ring. She and Richard had planned to use his grandmother's ring, but he'd taken it with him when he left. Tyler noticed her gesture and frowned slightly, as if making a mental note. Robert found his voice. "Emma Rose, have you lost your mind? You can't just marry some stranger because you were upset. He's not a stranger. He's Tyler Zimmerman. He has a ranch east of town, and he's my husband." Emma was surprised by how steady her voice remained. "Everything was already arranged, Papa. The church, the preacher, the license. We just used a different groom." "But you don't know him." Sarah wrung her hands. "You don't know anything about him." "I knew Richard for 6 months, and he still left me at the altar." Emma's voice hardened. "Tyler may be less familiar, but at least he had the decency to actually marry me." Tyler cleared his throat. "Mr. and Mrs. Dawson, I know this is a shock, but I give you my word I'll take good care of your daughter. I have a working ranch with 200 head of cattle, a solid house, and money in the bank. Emma will never go hungry or cold, and she'll be treated with respect and kindness. That's a promise." Robert studied Tyler for a long moment. Emma could see her father taking in the worn but clean clothes, the calloused hands, the direct gaze. "You the same Zimmerman who brought those cattle rustlers to justice last year, tracked them all the way to Salina." "Yes, sir. Couldn't let them steal what honest men worked hard for." "And you're asking me to believe you married my daughter out of the goodness of your heart?" "No, sir." Tyler met his gaze steadily. "I'm asking you to believe I married her because I need a wife and she needed a husband, and sometimes practical arrangements work out better than romantic ones. I'm asking you to give us a chance to prove this can be a good marriage." Sarah made a small, distressed sound. "But Emma, you don't love him." "I didn't love Richard either," Emma said quietly. "Not really. I thought I did, but Mama, he never even asked me what I dreamed about or what I hoped for. We talked about nothing important. At least Tyler has been honest with me from the start." "What's done is done," Robert said heavily. "Breaking this marriage would cause even more scandal than what already happened today." He looked at Tyler. "But hear me well, young man. That's my only daughter. If you mistreat her in any way, I don't care how good you are at tracking rustlers. I'll come for you myself." "I'd expect nothing less, sir." Tyler extended his hand, and after a moment, Robert shook it. Sarah rushed forward and pulled Emma into a tight embrace. "Oh, my baby girl. This wasn't how this day was supposed to go." "I know, Mama." Emma hugged her back, breathing in the familiar scent of lavender water and flower dust. "But maybe it's how it was meant to go all along. Maybe God knew Richard wasn't right for me. When will you come home?" Sarah pulled back, tears streaming down her face. Emma looked at Tyler, who nodded. "I'll need to gather my things. Could we stay for supper? Then we'll head to the ranch before dark." "Of course, of course." Sarah wiped her eyes. "I'll heat up the stew. It's not much, but it's filling. Mr. Zimmerman, I hope you like chicken and dumplings." "My favorite, madam." Tyler smiled at her, and Emma saw her mother soften slightly. They went inside, and Emma excused herself to change out of the wedding dress. Her small room looked exactly as she'd left it that morning, a lifetime ago. The narrow bed with its patchwork quilt, the dresser with the cracked mirror, the trunk at the foot of the bed containing all her worldly possessions. She'd expected to be packing these things for a move to the Hamilton Ranch, a sprawling estate with a 2-story house and imported furniture. Instead, she'd be taking them to a place she'd never even seen. Emma carefully removed the wedding dress, hanging it on the hook behind the door. She'd fix the small tear later, maybe remake it into something useful. Waste not, want not, as her mother always said. She put on a simple blue calico dress and practical boots, then began folding her clothes and placing them in the trunk. She didn't have much. A few dresses, some undergarments, her sewing supplies, a few books. The locket her grandmother had given her. A small music box that played a tinny waltz. A soft knock at the door made her turn. "Come in." Her father entered, his weathered face creased with concern. "Emma, girl, you don't have to do this. We'll manage somehow. The town will talk, but talk fades eventually. Papa, I'm already married. It's done." Emma sat on the bed and patted the space beside her. Robert sat, the bed creaking under his weight. "And honestly, I think this might be the first real choice I've made in my life. Richard courted me, asked you for my hand, planned everything. I just went along with it because it seemed like what I should do. But this, agreeing to marry Tyler, that was my decision. A decision made in distress is rarely a sound one. Maybe." Emma leaned her head on her father's shoulder like she used to when she was small. "But Tyler seems like a good man. And Papa, he gave me back my dignity. He saw me at my lowest moment and offered me a way out. That means something." Robert was quiet for a long moment. He seemed steady, honest. Those are good qualities in a husband. He kissed the top of her head. "Just promise me you'll send word if you need anything, anything at all. The ranch isn't so far that I couldn't reach you in a few hours. I promise." Emma squeezed his hand. "Now help me carry this trunk. Mrs. Zimmerman needs to pack up her life." Supper was a quiet affair, though Sarah made sure everyone had plenty to eat. Tyler complimented the food sincerely, and Emma watched him interact with her parents. He answered their questions about his ranch, his cattle, his plans for the future. He'd inherited the land from his uncle 3 years ago and had been building it up ever since. He employed 2 ranch hands who lived in the bunkhouse, handled most of the work himself. He spoke with quiet pride about his accomplishments, without boasting or exaggeration. As the sun began to sink toward the horizon, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink, Tyler stood. "We should head out. I want to get Emma home before full dark." Home. Such a strange word for a place she'd never seen. Emma hugged her parents goodbye, promising to visit soon, and climbed up onto the wagon seat beside Tyler. Her trunk was secured in the back, along with a basket of food her mother had insisted on packing. As they rolled out of Republic, Emma watched the familiar buildings recede behind them. The church steeple caught the last rays of sunlight, gleaming like a beacon. This morning she'd walked into that church as Emma Dawson, expecting to leave it as Emma Hamilton. Instead, she was Emma Zimmerman, heading into the unknown with a man she barely knew. "You're quiet," Tyler observed, guiding the horses onto the eastern trail. "Having second thoughts. About 100 of them," Emma admitted, "but I'm not turning back." "Good, because I am too." He glanced at her, and she saw the corner of his mouth quirk up. "What kind of fool offers to marry someone on the spot? My hands back at the ranch are going to think I've lost my mind." "What will you tell them?" "The truth. That I saw a beautiful woman in distress and made an impulsive decision that I hope works out for the best." Tyler adjusted the reins. "They're good men, Jack and Samuel. They'll be respectful, I'll make sure of it." "Beautiful?" Emma couldn't help but ask. Tyler's neck flushed red again. "You didn't look in a mirror before we left." "Even with your eyes all swollen from crying and your hair coming down, you're the prettiest thing I've ever seen. Why do you think I went into that church in the first place?" Emma felt warmth spread through her chest. "I thought you said you saw what happened and wanted to check on me." "That too. But Emma, I've noticed you around town for months. I never worked up the courage to speak to you, figured you were out of my league. Then when Hamilton started courting you, I knew I'd missed my chance." Tyler kept his eyes on the road ahead. "When I saw him walk out of that church, my first thought was that he was the biggest fool in Kansas. My second thought was that maybe I was getting a second chance after all. So this wasn't entirely selfless charity." "Not entirely," Tyler admitted. "Like I said, we're helping each other. But I won't pretend I didn't jump at the opportunity. I've been lonely, Emma, working from sunup to sundown, eating meals with the hands or by myself, sleeping in an empty bed. A man can only take so much of that before he starts to feel like he's missing out on something important." Emma considered this. "I appreciate your honesty. Richard always said what he thought I wanted to hear. I never knew what he really thought about anything." "I'll always tell you the truth," Tyler promised. "Even when it's not comfortable, that's one thing you can count on." They rode in comfortable silence for a while, the wagon creaking and swaying over the rutted trail. The Kansas prairie stretched endlessly around them, grass rippling in the evening breeze like waves on an ocean. The sky was so vast it made Emma feel impossibly small, yet somehow that wasn't frightening. It was freeing. "Tell me about the ranch," she said finally. "What's it like?" Tyler's face lit up. "It's beautiful country. The house sits on a rise overlooking Elm Creek. Not a big house, mind you, just 4 rooms. But it's solid with a good roof and a stone fireplace. There's a barn for the horses, a bunkhouse for the hands, and grazing land that goes on for miles. In the spring, wildflowers cover everything like a quilt. In the summer, the grass turns gold. And in the fall, the cottonwoods by the creek go orange and red like they're on fire." "You love it," Emma said, hearing the passion in his voice. "I do. It's mine, you know, not something I bought or inherited in comfort. I worked for every acre, every head of cattle, every board in that house. When my uncle left it to me, it was just raw land and a falling down shack. I built what's there now with my own hands." He glanced at her. "I hope you'll learn to love it too." "I hope so as well." Emma folded her hands in her lap. "What will my role be? Besides cooking and cleaning, I mean." "Whatever you want it to be. If you want to help with the ranch work, that's fine. If you want to focus on the house and maybe plant a garden, that's fine too. I'm not going to dictate your days, Emma. You're my wife, not my servant." Tyler paused. "Though I will say the house could use a woman's touch. I'm not much for decoration. I'm good with a needle and thread. Maybe I could make curtains, some cushions for the chairs. That'd be nice. Real nice." Tyler smiled. "There's a sewing machine in the house, actually. Belonged to my aunt. It's been sitting unused for years, but it should still work." Emma perked up. "A sewing machine, really? I've only ever used the one at the dress shop in town when Mrs. Henderson lets me. It's yours now. Use it however you like." The sun had fully set by the time they turned off the main trail onto a smaller path. In the gathering darkness, Emma could make out the shape of buildings ahead. Tyler drove the wagon up to a modest house, just as he described. Even in the dim light, she could see it was well maintained, the wood siding straight and true, the windows reflecting the first stars. "Welcome home, Mrs. Zimmerman." Tyler set the brake and hopped down, then came around to help her from the wagon. His hands were gentle but sure as he lifted her down. The front door opened and two men emerged, silhouetted by lamplight from inside. "Boss, that you?" one called. "It's me, Jack. Got someone I want you to meet." Tyler kept his hand on Emma's elbow as they approached. "This is my wife, Emma. We were married this afternoon." Both men froze. The older one, Jack, recovered first. He was probably in his 40s with graying hair and a weathered face. "Your wife? Tyler, did you hit your head or something? Long story." "Emma, this is Jack Patterson and Samuel Moore. They work the ranch with me. Boys, I expect you to treat my wife with respect and courtesy at all times." Samuel, a younger man with sandy hair and a sunburned nose, swept off his hat. "Madam, it's a pleasure. Though I got to say, this is about the most surprising thing that's happened around here in years." "The pleasure is mine," Emma said, finding her voice. "I hope we can all get along well." "I'll get your trunk," Jack said, moving toward the wagon. "You folks probably want to get settled." "We already ate, boss, but there's stew left if you're hungry." "We ate in town, thanks." Tyler guided Emma toward the door. "We'll see you men in the morning." Inside, the house was simple but clean. The main room served as both kitchen and living area, with a stone fireplace dominating one wall, a small table with chairs, and a cooking area with a cast iron stove. Two doors led off the main room. Tyler pointed to them. "That's the bedroom, and that's a smaller room I've been using for storage. But it could be a sewing room if you want, or we could turn it into a nursery eventually." A nursery. The word hung in the air between them, heavy with implication. Emma felt her cheeks heat. She was married to this man. Married, which meant that tonight they'd be sharing that bedroom. "I'll bring in your trunk," Tyler said, seeming to sense her discomfort. He disappeared back outside, and Emma took the opportunity to look around more carefully. The house was indeed sparse, decorated only with the bare necessities. But it was clean and well kept, the floor swept, the dishes washed and stacked neatly. A pair of worn boots sat by the door. A coat hung on a peg, simple evidence of a solitary life. Tyler returned with her trunk and set it down in the bedroom. Emma followed him in and saw a large bed with a simple quilt, a dresser and a washstand. A rug covered the floor and curtains hung at the window, though they were plain burlap. "I'll sleep in the other room tonight," Tyler said quietly. "Give you some time to settle in, get used to things." Emma turned to look at him, surprised. "We're married." "We are, but that doesn't mean we need to rush into everything all at once." Tyler met her eyes. "Emma, I know this has been the strangest day of your life. I know you're probably scared and confused and exhausted. I'm not going to add to that by demanding my marital rights on our first night together." Relief and something else, something she couldn't quite identify, washed through Emma. "Thank you, that's kind of you. It's not kindness, it's common sense. We're going to be married for the rest of our lives, God willing. We've got time to figure things out." Tyler moved toward the door. "Get some rest. If you need anything, I'll be right in the other room." "Tyler," Emma called as he reached the threshold. He turned back. "Today you gave me back something I thought I'd lost forever. My dignity, my future, my hope. I don't know how to thank you for that." "You already did. You said yes." Tyler smiled, and it transformed his whole face, making him almost handsome. No, not almost, Emma realized. He was handsome, in a rugged, honest way that had nothing to do with fine clothes or polished manners. "Good night, Emma." "Good night." Alone in the bedroom, Emma sat on the edge of the bed and let out a long breath. This morning she'd woken in her childhood bedroom, nervous and excited about marrying Richard Hamilton. Tonight she was in a stranger's house, a stranger's bed, wearing a stranger's ring, except there was no ring because this had all happened so fast. She unpacked her trunk slowly, hanging her dresses in the small wardrobe, placing her undergarments in the dresser drawers. The physical activity was soothing, giving her hands something to do while her mind raced. When everything was put away, she changed into her nightgown and brushed out her hair, watching herself in the small mirror above the dresser. She looked different, not in any physical way but in her eyes. Something had changed. This morning she'd been a girl playing at being a bride, wearing a fancy dress and following a script someone else had written. Tonight she was a woman who'd made her own choice, for better or worse. Emma climbed into bed and blew out the lamp. The sheets smelled like soap and sunshine, and the mattress was comfortable, much better than her narrow bed at home. Through the thin walls, she could hear Tyler moving around in the other room, the creak of floorboards, the rustle of fabric. She'd married a stranger today. A kind stranger, an honest one, but a stranger nonetheless. She knew almost nothing about him beyond what he'd told her in a few short hours. But somehow, lying there in the dark, Emma felt safe, protected. Like maybe, just maybe, this wild, impulsive decision might turn out to be the best thing that ever happened to her. Sleep came slowly, but when it finally did, Emma dreamed not of Richard Hamilton and his betrayal, but of wildflowers covering the prairie like a quilt, and a man with kind eyes teaching her to love the land as much as he did. Emma woke to sunlight streaming through the window and the smell of coffee brewing. For a moment she was disoriented, unsure where she was. Then memory crashed back. The wedding, the abandonment, Tyler's proposal. She was married in her husband's house, starting a new life. She dressed quickly in a simple brown work dress and braided her hair, then ventured out into the main room. Tyler stood at the stove, frying eggs and bacon. He'd already dressed for the day in work clothes, his dark hair damp as if he'd washed at the pump outside. "Morning," he said when he saw her. "I wasn't sure what you liked for breakfast, so I made a bit of everything. Coffee and toast is usually plenty for me, but that smells wonderful." Emma moved to the table, feeling awkward. What did one say to one's husband the morning after a wedding that wasn't really a wedding? Tyler seemed to sense her discomfort. "The hands ate already and headed out to check the north pasture, so it's just us. Thought maybe we could spend the day getting you settled and I could show you around the ranch. I'd like that." Emma accepted the plate he handed her, loaded with more food than she usually ate in a day. "Tyler, about last night, thank you for being patient with me. No need to thank me. Like I said, we've got time." Tyler sat across from her with his own plate, Did you sleep all right? Bed comfortable enough? Very comfortable. Better than my old bed, honestly. Emma took a sip of coffee and nearly groaned. It was strong and hot and perfect. This is good coffee. Only thing I know how to make properly, Tyler admitted with a grin. Well, that and beans. But I can't live on just coffee and beans, so I'm real glad you can cook. My mother made sure I could cook, clean, and manage a household. She wanted me to be prepared for marriage. Emma paused. Though I don't think she imagined it would happen quite like this. How are you feeling about it all? In the light of day, I mean. Tyler studied her across the table. Any regrets? Emma considered the question carefully. I'd be lying if I said I wasn't scared. Everything is so new and strange. But regrets? No. I think you saved me yesterday, Tyler. From public humiliation, from a life of being pitied, from wondering what was wrong with me that Richard couldn't go through with it. Nothing is wrong with you. I want you to know that. What Hamilton did, that was about him and his weakness, not about you. Tyler's voice was firm. You deserve to be wanted, Emma, chosen, not settled for. Is that what you're doing, choosing me? Yes. Tyler held her gaze. I saw you in that church and I chose you. Not because I felt sorry for you, but because I thought you were brave and beautiful and the kind of woman worth building a life with. Emma felt something flutter in her chest. You barely know me. Then we'll spend our lives getting to know each other. Seems like a fair trade. Tyler finished his eggs and pushed back from the table. Come on, let me show you your new home. They spent the morning exploring the ranch. Tyler showed her the barn where he kept his horses, including a gentle mare named Daisy that he said Emma could ride whenever she wanted. They walked down to Elm Creek, where cottonwood trees provided shade and the water ran clear over smooth stones. He pointed out the boundaries of his land, the places where cattle liked to graze, the hills in the distance that marked the edge of his property. It's beautiful, Emma said, standing on a rise overlooking the creek. The wind pulled strands of hair from her braid, and she could smell sage and wildflowers. I've lived in Republic my whole life. I've never seen land that goes on forever like this. It gets in your blood, Tyler said, standing beside her. The space, the freedom. I couldn't go back to living in town now, too closed in. He glanced at her. But if you get lonely, Republic is only a few hours away. You can visit your family whenever you want. That's generous of you. Some husbands wouldn't allow it. I'm not some husbands. You're not my prisoner, Emma. You're my partner. Tyler turned to face her fully. I meant what I said yesterday. This is a partnership. Your opinions matter. Your happiness matters. We make decisions together. Emma searched his face, looking for any hint of deception, but found only sincerity. I'm starting to think I might have gotten very lucky. We both did. Tyler smiled. Come on, there's one more thing I want to show you. He led her back to the house and into the smaller room he'd mentioned the night before. It was indeed full of storage, boxes and crates and various odds and ends. But in the corner, covered with a sheet, was a shape that made Emma's heart skip. Tyler pulled off the sheet to reveal a beautiful treadle sewing machine, the kind Emma had only dreamed of owning. It was dusty but intact, the wood grain still rich, the metal fittings only slightly tarnished. My aunt was a seamstress too, Tyler said. She used to make clothes for half the county. When she died, my uncle couldn't bear to get rid of her things, so he just covered them up. He ran a hand over the machine. I thought maybe you could clean it up, get it working again. Seems a shame to let it sit unused. Emma approached the machine reverently, her fingers tracing the intricate scrollwork on the iron. It's beautiful. A Singer and a newer model too. If it still works, I could make anything with this. Then it's yours. Take whatever time you need to clean up this room, make it your space. Tyler moved toward the door. I need to go help the hands with some fence repairs, but I'll be back for lunch. Will you be all right here by yourself? I'll be fine. I have plenty to keep me busy. Emma was already mentally rearranging the room, planning where things would go. Tyler hesitated in the doorway. Emma, I'm glad you're here. Just wanted you to know that. I'm glad too, Emma said, and realized she meant it. After Tyler left, Emma spent the next few hours cleaning and organizing. She cleared out the smaller room, moving boxes to the barn and throwing out things that were broken or useless. She scrubbed the floor and walls, washed the window until it sparkled, and carefully cleaned the sewing machine. To her delight, when she tested it, the mechanism still worked smoothly. By the time Tyler and the hands returned for lunch, Emma had transformed the room into a proper sewing space. She'd even found some fabric in one of the boxes, faded but still usable. The transformation had given her a sense of purpose, of making this place truly her home. She prepared lunch from the supplies in the pantry, simple sandwiches and beans, but the men ate like she'd served a feast. Jack and Samuel were clearly still bewildered by Tyler's sudden marriage, but they were unfailingly polite to Emma, calling her madam and thanking her for the meal. "This is a real nice change from Tyler's cooking," Samuel said with a grin. "No offense, boss, but your beans could be used as building materials. None taken." Tyler leaned back in his chair, looking relaxed and content. "Emma, the boys and I need to ride out to the eastern pasture this afternoon, check on some cattle. Will you be all right here alone for a few hours?" "Of course. I'm thinking of making curtains for the main room. Those burlap ones are fine, but we could use something prettier." Emma started clearing plates. "Take your time. I have plenty to occupy myself." After the men left, Emma settled into her sewing room with the fabric she'd found. It was a cheerful yellow calico that would brighten the main room considerably. She lost herself in the familiar rhythm of cutting and stitching, the treadle of the machine becoming like a heartbeat beneath her feet. As she worked, she thought about Tyler, about the way he'd looked at her that morning over breakfast, like she was something precious, about how he'd given her the sewing machine without a second thought, had carved out a space just for her in his home, about how he'd asked if she'd be all right alone, not ordering her to stay but trusting her to manage. Richard had never asked her opinion on anything. He'd made all the decisions about their courtship, their wedding, their future. He'd talked at her, not with her. Looking back, Emma realized she'd never felt truly seen by him. She'd been an accessory, a suitable wife to enhance his standing, but Tyler saw her. In less than a day, he'd seen her more clearly than Richard had in 6 months. The afternoon shadows were lengthening when Emma heard horses approaching. She set aside her sewing and went to the window, watching as Tyler and the hands rode into the yard. Tyler dismounted and said something to the other men that made them laugh, then headed for the house. He came in dusty and tired, but his face lit up when he saw the new curtains already hanging in the windows. "Emma, those are beautiful. You made them this afternoon." "I'm fast when I have a good machine to work with." Emma felt absurdly pleased by his reaction. "What do you think? Too much yellow?" "No, it's perfect. Makes the whole place feel different, happier." Tyler removed his hat and hung it on the peg. "I'm going to wash up. Then maybe we could have some supper." They fell into an easy routine over the following days. Tyler would rise early and work the ranch with Jack and Samuel, while Emma managed the house, cooked meals, and worked on various sewing projects. In the evenings, they'd sit together on the porch, watching the sunset paint the sky in brilliant colors, and talk. Emma learned that Tyler's parents had died when he was young, that he'd been raised by his uncle who taught him everything about ranching. He learned that Emma had always dreamed of having her own dress shop, that she loved reading but rarely had money for books, that her favorite color was blue like the Kansas sky. They talked about everything and nothing. the conversations flowing naturally. Tyler made her laugh with stories about ornery cattle and stubborn horses. Emma told him about the eccentric customers who came into the dress shop, the impossible requests and outrageous fashions they wanted copied from magazines. A week after the wedding, Tyler came in from the range and found Emma in her sewing room working on a shirt. "Is that for me?" he asked, peering over her shoulder. "It's meant to be a surprise, but yes. Your work shirts are all worn thin. I thought I'd make you some new ones." Emma held up the partially completed garment. "I hope I got the measurements right." Tyler took the shirt, examining her stitches. "This is fine work, Emma, really fine. You could sell these." "I've thought about it. Maybe making shirts and dresses to sell in town, earning my own money." She looked at him uncertainly. "Would that bother you? Some men don't like their wives working." "Why would it bother me if you want to work? Like I said, you're my partner, not my servant. Besides, it'd be foolish to waste a talent like yours." Tyler handed back the shirt. "In fact, I bet if you set up a little shop area in town, you'd have more orders than you could handle. Mrs. Henderson at the Mercantile is always complaining that women have to send away for decent dresses. You'd really support that, of course. We could set aside some money to get you started, buy fabric and thread and whatever else you need." Tyler sat on the edge of the desk. "Emma, I want you to be happy here. If dressmaking makes you happy, then do it." Impulsively, Emma stood and kissed his cheek. "Thank you for everything. For this life you're giving me." Tyler's hand came up to cup her face, his thumb brushing her cheekbone. For a moment, Emma thought he might kiss her properly. Her heart raced, and she realized she wanted him to. But he just smiled and stepped back. "You're giving me a life, too. A home that's more than just a place to sleep. Someone to talk to who actually understands what I'm saying. That's worth more than you know." That night, lying alone in the bedroom while Tyler slept in the sewing room, Emma realized something had shifted. She no longer thought of this as Tyler's house, Tyler's ranch. It was becoming theirs. And Tyler was no longer a stranger who'd offered her a convenient escape. He was becoming someone important, someone she looked forward to seeing each morning and missed when he was out on the range. Was this what the beginning of love felt like? Not the dramatic, overwhelming passion she'd read about in novels, but a quiet growing warmth, a sense of rightness, a feeling of coming home. 2 weeks after their wedding, Emma drove the wagon into Republic to visit her parents and pick up supplies. She'd been nervous about facing the town, but Tyler had encouraged her, reminding her that she had nothing to be ashamed of. As she walked down the main street, she was acutely aware of people staring. But to her surprise, most of the looks weren't pitying or judgmental. They were curious, even approving. Several women she knew nodded politely. Mrs. Henderson actually came out of the Mercantile to greet her. "Mrs. Zimmerman, how lovely to see you." The older woman beamed. "How are you settling in at the ranch?" "Very well, thank you." Emma was surprised by the warm reception. "Tyler has been wonderful, very kind and patient." "He's a good man, that Tyler Zimmerman, hard-working and honest. You did well for yourself, dear." Mrs. Henderson leaned in conspiratorially. "Between you and me, Richard Hamilton's mother is fit to be tied. Heard her son got drunk 3 days after your wedding and had to be carried home from the saloon. Seems he's realized what he gave up." Emma felt a flash of satisfaction at that, followed quickly by indifference. Richard Hamilton's regrets weren't her problem anymore. That's unfortunate for him. I, however, am very happy with how things turned out." "As you should be." Mrs. Henderson patted her arm. "Now, what can I help you with today?" Emma spent a pleasant hour shopping and catching up on town news. It seemed that, far from being a scandal, her marriage to Tyler was being viewed as romantic, even admirable. Several people made a point of congratulating her, and saying they'd known all along that Richard Hamilton wasn't good enough for her. At her parents' house, Emma found her mother in better spirits. Sarah fussed over her, asking 100 questions about the ranch, Tyler, her daily life. Emma answered honestly, describing the house and the land and Tyler's kindness. "He sounds like a good husband," Sarah said finally, pouring tea. "Better than I dared hope when you told us you'd married him." "He is, Mama. He treats me with respect, values my opinions, supports my dreams." Emma smiled. "Yesterday he suggested I start a dressmaking business, said he'd help me get set up." "A business? Truly?" Sarah's eyes widened. "Oh, Emma, that's wonderful. You've always wanted that." "I know. Richard never took it seriously when I mentioned it, said a Hamilton wife wouldn't need to work." Emma sipped her tea. "Tyler is different. He sees me as a person, not just a wife." Her father came in from his workshop, and his greeting was warm. Over lunch, Emma told them more about ranch life, about Jack and Samuel, about learning to ride the mare Daisy, about the endless sky and the freedom of the open prairie. "You sound happy," Robert observed. "Really happy, not just making the best of things." "I am happy, Papa, more than I expected to be." Emma realized it was true. "I know it started strangely, but Tyler and I are building something real, something good." On the drive back to the ranch, Emma's wagon was loaded with supplies and news from town. She was eager to get home, eager to tell Tyler about her day. When had she started thinking of the ranch as home instead of her parents' house? When had she started anticipating Tyler's company instead of dreading awkward silences? As the ranch came into view, Emma saw Tyler working in the corral with a young horse. He looked up when he heard the wagon, and his face broke into a smile. He said something to Samuel, who took over the horse and jogged over to meet her. "How was town?" Tyler helped her down from the wagon, his hands lingering at her waist just a moment longer than necessary. "Good. Everyone sends their regards." Emma smiled up at him. "And Mrs. Henderson wants to know if I'd be interested in selling dresses through the mercantile. She says she's tired of women having to order from catalogs." "That's great. See, I told you there'd be interest." Tyler started unloading the wagon. "What did you tell her?" "That I'd think about it and get back to her. I wanted to discuss it with you first." "Emma, you don't need my permission to work. If you want to make dresses and sell them, do it. I'll support you however I can." Tyler carried a sack of flour toward the house. "In fact, I've been thinking. What if we built a small addition to the house? A proper shop area where you could meet with clients and keep your inventory. You'd have more space than just the sewing room." Emma stared at him. "Tyler, that would be expensive. Are you sure?" "I'm sure. The ranch is doing well. We can afford it. And it'd be an investment in your business, in our future." Tyler set down the flour and turned to face her. "Emma, I want you to have everything you've ever dreamed of. If that means building you a dress shop, then that's what we'll do." Something in Emma's chest cracked open. This man, this wonderful, generous, kind man who'd married her on impulse, was giving her everything she'd never dared ask for. Not just security or respectability, but true partnership, support, encouragement to be more than just a wife. "Tyler," she said softly, "can I ask you something?" "Anything?" "Why are you still sleeping in the sewing room?" Tyler's eyes widened. A flush crept up his neck. "I didn't want to pressure you. I thought you needed time to get used to being married, to feel comfortable with me." "It's been 2 weeks. I'm comfortable with you." "More than comfortable." Emma stepped closer to him. "You're my husband. I want you to be my husband in every way." "Emma." Tyler's voice was rough. "Are you sure? Because once we cross that line, there's no going back. We'll be truly married." "We're already truly married, and I'm sure." Emma reached up and touched his face, feeling the stubble on his jaw, the warmth of his skin. "I want this. I want you." Tyler pulled her close, and this time when he kissed her, there was nothing chaste or brief about it. His lips were warm and firm, moving against hers with a hunger that made her knees weak. Emma wrapped her arms around his neck and kissed him back, pouring 2 weeks of growing affection and desire into it. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Tyler rested his forehead against hers. "I've wanted to do that since the moment I saw you in that church." "Then why didn't you?" "Because I wanted you to want it too, to choose me, not just accept me." Tyler cupped her face in both hands. "Emma Zimmerman, I'm falling in love with you. I need you to know that before we take this next step. This isn't just convenience for me anymore. You've become the most important person in my life." Emma felt tears prick her eyes, but they were happy tears. "I'm falling in love with you too." Somewhere between the curtains and the sewing machine and all those sunset conversations, you became everything to me. "Then let's go inside," Tyler said, his voice low and intimate. "Let me be your husband properly." That night, Tyler moved his things back into the bedroom, and Emma discovered that being married was about so much more than she'd ever imagined. It was about trust and tenderness, about learning each other's bodies and hearts, about giving and receiving pleasure in equal measure. Tyler was patient and gentle, making sure Emma's first time was as painless as possible, focusing on her comfort and pleasure before his own. Afterward, lying in his arms with her head on his chest, Emma felt a completeness she'd never known existed. This was what had been missing with Richard. Not just the physical intimacy, but the emotional connection that made it meaningful. "I love you," she whispered into the darkness. "I really, truly love you." Tyler tightened his arms around her, pressing a kiss to the top of her head. "I love you too, more than I thought possible." The next morning, Emma woke to an empty bed but could hear Tyler moving around in the kitchen. She dressed and found him making breakfast, looking ridiculously pleased with himself. "Morning, wife," he said with a grin that made her blush. "Morning, husband." Emma moved to help him, and they worked together in comfortable synchronicity, passing plates and utensils without needing to speak. Over breakfast, they discussed plans for the dress shop addition. Tyler wanted to start construction before winter set in, which meant they'd need to hire a carpenter soon. Emma would need to make a list of requirements for the space, think about how to arrange it for the best workflow. The conversation was mundane and practical, but underscored with a new intimacy that made even discussing lumber measurements feel romantic. Tyler would catch her eye across the table and smile, or reach over to squeeze her hand. Emma found herself touching him constantly, small gestures of affection that felt as natural as breathing. Over the following months, their life together deepened and grew. Construction on the dress shop began in August, and by October, Emma had a beautiful space attached to the house with large windows for good light, shelves for fabric and supplies, and a fitting area for clients. She'd placed an advertisement in the Republic newspaper, and orders started coming in immediately. Emma discovered she loved running her own business. She loved consulting with clients about what they wanted, selecting fabrics and designs, creating garments that made women feel beautiful. Tyler was her biggest supporter, driving her into town for deliveries, helping her keep accounts, bragging to anyone who'd listen about his talented wife. The ranch prospered too. Tyler's hard work and good management paid off with a successful cattle drive in September that brought in more money than he'd expected. He immediately invested half of it back into the ranch, buying more breeding stock and making improvements to the property. Their physical relationship continued to grow and deepen. Emma had never imagined that marriage could be so passionate, so fulfilling. Tyler was an attentive lover, always making sure she found pleasure, always treating her with tenderness and respect. Their nights together became a sacred time, a way of expressing love that went beyond words. In November, Emma missed her monthly courses. Then December came and went with no sign of them. By January, there was no denying it. She was pregnant. She told Tyler on a cold winter evening as they sat by the fire. He'd been reading a livestock journal while she mended one of his shirts. "Tyler, I need to tell you something." He looked up, immediately alert to the serious tone in her voice. "What is it? Are you all right?" "I'm fine." "Better than fine, actually." Emma set down her mending and took his hand. "We're going to have a baby, probably sometime in August if I'm calculating right." Tyler's face went through a series of expressions: shock, wonder, joy, and finally pure elation. He pulled Emma into his arms, holding her tight. "A baby! We're having a baby! Emma, that's wonderful! You're happy!" Emma pulled back to see his face. "Happy? I'm over the moon. This is the best news ever." Tyler placed his hand gently on her still flat stomach. "Our child. A piece of both of us. I was worried you might think it's too soon. We've only been married 8 months. 8 wonderful months, and now they're about to get even better." Tyler kissed her softly. "You're going to be an amazing mother, Emma, I know it, and you'll be an amazing father." Emma leaned into his embrace. "I can already picture you teaching our son or daughter to ride, to work the land, to love this place like you do." They spent the evening making plans, discussing names and changes they'd need to make to the house. The sewing room would become the nursery, Emma decided. She'd move her business operations entirely to the new shop space. Tyler wanted to hire an additional hand to help with the heavier ranch work, so Emma wouldn't feel obligated to do anything too strenuous. "I'm pregnant, not fragile," Emma protested with a laugh. "Women have babies while working all the time. Not my wife. My wife is going to take it easy and let herself be pampered." Tyler was firm on this. "I'm not risking you or the baby." Emma's pregnancy progressed smoothly through the winter and into spring. Her business continued to thrive, though she had to let out her own dresses as her belly grew. The townspeople of Republic were delighted by the news, and Emma found herself on the receiving end of constant advice, gifts of baby clothes, and predictions about whether she was carrying a boy or girl. Her mother came to stay for 2 weeks in March, helping Emma prepare the nursery and make tiny gowns and blankets. Sarah was thrilled at the prospect of becoming a grandmother, though she did give Emma a meaningful look when she saw how openly affectionate Emma and Tyler were with each other. "That's what marriage should look like," Sarah said one evening after Tyler had kissed Emma goodbye before heading out to check on a calving cow. "The way you two are with each other, the love that's so clear. I'm glad you found that, baby girl." "So am I, Mama." "Richard leaving me at the altar was the best thing that ever happened to me. It led me to Tyler." Emma rested a hand on her rounded belly. "To this life, this baby, everything I never knew I wanted." As summer approached and Emma's time drew near, Tyler became increasingly protective. He hovered constantly, worrying about every little thing. Emma found it sweet, if occasionally frustrating. She had to practically order him to go check the cattle instead of sitting in the house watching her like she might give birth at any moment. "Tyler, women have been having babies since the beginning of time," she said exasperatedly one morning in late July. "I'll be fine for a few hours while you work. The midwife says I have at least another 2 weeks. The midwife could be wrong. What if you go into labor and I'm miles away?" Tyler looked genuinely worried. "Then Jack or Samuel will ride to get you, but that's not going to happen today. Go, work. I have orders to finish." Emma shooed him toward the door. "I'll be right here when you get back." Reluctantly, Tyler left, though he made her promise to send for him at the first sign of anything unusual. Emma settled into her shop with her sewing, smiling at her husband's concern. Who would have thought that the dusty cowboy who'd offered his name in a church would turn into such a devoted, loving husband and soon-to-be father? As it turned out, the midwife's prediction was accurate. On August 15th, 2 weeks after that conversation and exactly 9 months after their first night together as truly husband and wife, Emma's labor began. Tyler sent Jack racing for the midwife and her mother while he stayed by Emma's side, holding her hand through the contractions. "I'm here," he kept saying. "I'm right here with you. You're doing so well, Emma, so strong." Labor was long and difficult, lasting through the afternoon and into the evening. Tyler never left, despite the midwife's suggestions that he might want to wait outside. He stayed at Emma's side, wiping her face with cool cloths, murmuring encouragement, letting her squeeze his hand so hard she left marks. Finally, as the sun was setting on another beautiful Kansas summer day, their baby entered the world with a lusty cry. "It's a boy," the midwife announced, placing the squalling infant on Emma's chest. "A healthy baby boy." Emma looked down at her son, at his red, wrinkled face and shock of dark hair, and felt her heart expand impossibly. "Hello, little one, we've been waiting for you." Tyler leaned over them both, his eyes wet with tears. "He's perfect. Emma, you're amazing. Look what you did. Look at our son." "What should we name him?" Emma asked, stroking the baby's soft cheek. "I was thinking about my uncle since he left me the land that gave us our start. His name was Thomas James." Tyler looked at her hopefully. "What do you think? Thomas Zimmerman." "Thomas James Zimmerman." Emma tested it out. "Tommy for short, I love it. Hello, Tommy, welcome to the world." The first weeks with a newborn were exhausting but wonderful. Emma had never known she could love someone so much, so fiercely. And watching Tyler with their son was a revelation. The tough cowboy turned into an absolute marshmallow around Tommy, spending hours just holding him, talking to him, showing him around the ranch. "He can't understand you," Emma said with amusement one afternoon, finding Tyler on the porch with Tommy, pointing out different features of the landscape. "How do you know? Maybe he understands more than we think. He needs to learn about his home, about the land that'll be his someday." Tyler looked down at the baby in his arms with such tender love that Emma felt tears spring to her eyes. "I love you," she said softly. "I love our family. I love this life we've built. I love you too, both of you." Tyler reached out with one arm to pull Emma close, the three of them standing together on the porch as the sun painted the sky in brilliant oranges and pinks. "You know, a year ago, I was alone in this house, eating beans out of a can and wondering if I'd ever find someone to share my life with. Now look at us. A beautiful wife, a healthy son, a thriving ranch and business. I'm the luckiest man alive. We're both lucky. That day in the church when you offered me your name, you gave me everything I didn't know I needed." Emma leaned her head on his shoulder. "You gave me yourself." As autumn arrived and Tommy grew from a tiny newborn into a chubby, smiling baby, Emma's business continued to flourish. She'd hired a young woman from town, Rachel, to help with the simpler sewing tasks so Emma could focus on the more complex designs and on motherhood. The arrangement worked well, giving Emma the flexibility to nurse Tommy and care for him while still maintaining her business. Tyler expanded the ranch further, buying adjacent land from a neighbor who was moving back east. The additional acreage meant more grazing space, more cattle, more profit. He hired a third ranch hand, a young man named David who just arrived in Kansas from Missouri looking for work. Their first anniversary passed in September, and Tyler surprised Emma by arranging for her parents to watch Tommy overnight so he could take her into Republic for dinner at the town's new restaurant. It was the first time they'd been alone together since the baby was born. "I can't believe it's been a year," Emma said over dessert. It feels like both forever and no time at all. Best year of my life, Tyler said, reaching across the table to take her hand. Every single day with you has been a gift, even the hard ones. Do you ever think about how differently things could have gone? If Richard hadn't left me at the altar, if you hadn't come into the church, Emma squeezed his fingers, we might never have found each other. I think we would have eventually. Maybe not that day, maybe not that way, but somehow. You were meant to be mine, Emma. I feel that in my bones. Tyler's hazel eyes were intense. Everything that happened, all of it, led us to this. To each other, to Tommy, to the life we have. I wouldn't change a single thing. Neither would I. Not even the heartbreak and humiliation, because it brought me to you. Emma smiled. Though I have to admit, I enjoy seeing Richard around town looking miserable. Is that petty of me? Tyler laughed. Maybe a little, but he deserves it. I heard he tried courting the mayor's daughter and she turned him down flat. Said she didn't want a man who couldn't commit. His reputation never recovered from leaving you. Good. Emma felt no real vindictiveness, just a sense of rightness. Richard had made his choice, and he was living with the consequences. Meanwhile, she was living her best life with a man who truly loved and valued her. They walked through Republic hand in hand that evening, past the church where they'd married, past the mercantile where Emma's dresses were now featured prominently in the window, past all the familiar landmarks of their town. People greeted them warmly, congratulating them on their anniversary and asking after Tommy. Everyone loves you, Tyler observed as they headed back to collect their son. You're not just my wife anymore. You're Emma Zimmerman, successful businesswoman and beloved community member. You've made a name for yourself. We've made a name for ourselves, Emma corrected. This is our success, Tyler, yours and mine together. I couldn't have done any of it without your support and encouragement. Partners, Tyler said, the word that had defined their marriage from the beginning. Always. The years that followed were full and happy. Tommy grew into a bright, energetic toddler who loved following his father around the ranch and helping with the chores. In the spring of 1879, Emma gave birth to their second child, a daughter they named Lily Rose. Where Tommy had his father's dark hair and serious demeanor, Lily was blonde like Emma and smiled constantly. Emma's dress shop became one of the most successful businesses in Republic. Women came from as far away as Salina to have her create their special occasion dresses. She hired 2 more seamstresses and expanded the shop again, this time adding a second floor for storage and a larger fitting area. Tyler's ranch grew to be one of the most prosperous in Marshall County. He was known for his honesty in business dealings and the quality of his cattle. Other ranchers sought his advice on breeding and land management. He served on the town council and was instrumental in bringing a new school to Republic. But for all their professional success, what mattered most to Emma and Tyler was their family. Long after the children were in bed, they'd sit together on the porch as they had since the beginning, talking and dreaming and planning for the future. You ever miss the excitement of that first year? Emma asked one evening in the summer of 1882. Tommy was 5 now, Lily 3, and Emma was pregnant again with their third child. When everything was new and uncertain, not for a second, Tyler said firmly. I'll take this certainty any day. Knowing you'll be there when I wake up, that our children are safe and happy, that we've built something lasting. That's worth more than any amount of excitement. I feel the same way. Though I do sometimes think about that girl crying in the church, wondering what she'd think if she could see me now. Emma rested a hand on her swollen belly. Would she believe that the dusty cowboy who offered her his name would become the love of her life? Would the lonely rancher believe that the beautiful girl in the wedding dress would make all his dreams come true? Tyler countered. He pulled Emma close, as much as her pregnant belly would allow. "We've done well, haven't we? Built a good life, raised good children, loved each other well." "We have. And we're not done yet. We have years ahead of us, more children to raise, more dreams to chase." Emma kissed him softly. "I'm so glad it was you in that church. So glad you saw me, chose me, loved me." "Always have, always will," Tyler promised. "You're it for me, Emma Zimmerman. From that day in the church until my last breath, you're it." Their third child was another boy, born in December of 1882. They named him Robert after Emma's father, and he had Emma's blue eyes and sunny disposition. The house was full of noise and laughter, and the chaos of 3 young children, and Emma wouldn't have had it any other way. As the children grew, they each developed their own interests and personalities. Tommy was serious and hardworking, already showing signs of being a natural rancher like his father. Lily was creative and dreamy, spending hours drawing pictures and making up elaborate stories. Little Robert was adventurous and fearless, constantly getting into mischief. Emma balanced motherhood with her business, finding that the two complemented each other beautifully. Her children would play in the shop while she worked, learning early the value of honest work and creative expression. Tommy showed an aptitude for numbers and helped keep track of inventory. Lily loved arranging the fabric bolts by color and pattern. Tyler remained a devoted husband and father, always making time for his family despite the demands of the ranch. He taught Tommy to ride and rope, sat through Lily's endless make-believe tea parties without complaint, and chased Robert around the yard until they both collapsed laughing. On their 5th anniversary, Emma and Tyler renewed their vows in the same church where they'd married, this time with their children and the whole town in attendance. It was everything their first wedding had lacked: joyful, celebratory, surrounded by love and community. "Do you, Emma Rose Zimmerman, still take this man to be your husband?" Reverend Matthews asked, his eyes twinkling behind his spectacles. He'd watched their marriage flourish over the years and took personal pride in having performed the ceremony. "I do," Emma said clearly. "Today and always." "And do you, Tyler Joseph Zimmerman, still take this woman to be your wife?" "I do. Best decision I ever made." Tyler grinned at Emma, and she felt the same flutter in her chest that she'd felt that first night together. This time when Tyler kissed her, the church erupted in applause. Tommy made a face at his parents' display of affection. Lily clapped delightedly, and Robert shouted "Papa kissing Mama" at the top of his lungs, making everyone laugh. The reception afterward was held at the ranch, with tables set up outside and food enough to feed half the county. Emma's parents were there, looking proud and happy. Jack and Samuel, still working the ranch after all these years, regaled anyone who'd listen with stories about the early days of Tyler and Emma's marriage. "I'll never forget the day Tyler came back from town with a wife," Jack said, laughing. "We thought he'd lost his mind, but turns out he's smarter than we gave him credit for. Best decision he ever made." As the sun set and the party wound down, Emma and Tyler stood together on their porch, watching their children play with the other ranch kids in the yard. The house Emma had thought too simple when she first saw it had been expanded and improved over the years, but it retained its essential character: a home built on love and hard work. "Happy anniversary, Mrs. Zimmerman," Tyler said, wrapping his arms around her waist from behind. "Happy anniversary, Mr. Zimmerman." Emma leaned back against him. "Here's to the next 5 years and the 5 after that and all the years we have left together." "That's a lot of years," Tyler observed. "Not enough," Emma replied. "I could have 100 years with you and it wouldn't be enough." They stood in comfortable silence, watching the sky turn from pink to purple to deep blue, stars beginning to emerge like diamonds scattered across velvet. The prairie wind carried the scent of sage and summer grass, and somewhere in the distance, cattle lowed softly. This was Emma's life now, not the one she'd planned when she stood at that altar in a fancy wedding dress, waiting for a groom who never came. This was better, richer, more real than anything she could have imagined. She had a husband who loved her deeply, children who filled her days with joy, work that fulfilled her, and a community where she belonged. "What are you thinking about?" Tyler asked, pressing a kiss to her temple. "How grateful I am. For everything. For you, for our children, for this life we've built." Emma turned in his arms to face him. "For that moment in the church when you offered me your name instead of letting me face my humiliation alone. You saved me that day, Tyler." "No," Tyler said softly, cupping her face in his hands. "We saved each other. I was half a man before you, Emma, existing but not really living. You gave me purpose, joy, love. You made me whole. Then we're even." Emma smiled, tears gathering in her eyes. Two broken people who found each other at exactly the right moment and made something beautiful together. "The most beautiful thing," Tyler agreed. "And we're not done yet. We have so much more ahead of us." He was right. The years continued to unfold in a tapestry of ordinary moments that added up to an extraordinary life. More anniversaries celebrated, more birthdays marked, more Christmases spent gathered around the fire exchanging simple gifts and elaborate love. In 1885, Emma gave birth to their fourth and final child, a girl they named Grace. She completed their family perfectly, a calm, sweet baby who rarely cried and seemed to bring peace wherever she went. With 4 children under the age of 8, the house was perpetually chaotic, but Emma thrived on it. Tyler expanded the ranch one final time, buying out a neighbor who was retiring. The Zimmerman ranch became one of the largest and most successful in the region. But Tyler never forgot his humble beginnings or the values of hard work and integrity that had built his success. As the children grew older, they began to find their own paths. Tommy, true to form, became Tyler's right hand on the ranch, learning everything his father could teach him about cattle and land management. Lily discovered a talent for art and music, though she also inherited her mother's skill with a needle. Robert, after scaring his parents half to death with various misadventures, developed a passion for horses and became an exceptional trainer. Grace, the youngest, was still finding her way but showed promise in everything she tried. Emma's dress shop continued to thrive, becoming a legacy she planned to pass down to Lily someday. She took on apprentices from town, teaching young women the trade and helping them develop skills that would allow them to support themselves. In a time when women's options were limited, Emma took pride in providing opportunities and empowerment. On a crisp autumn day in 1890, Emma and Tyler celebrated their 15th anniversary with a quiet dinner at home, just the two of them. The children were spending the night with Emma's parents, giving them a rare evening alone. 15 years, Emma marveled, looking at Tyler across the table. He'd aged well, his face more lined now, his hair showing threads of silver at the temples. But his eyes were still kind, his smile still made her heart skip, and his love for her had only deepened with time. Sometimes it feels like yesterday, and sometimes it feels like we've been together forever. Forever sounds about right, Tyler said. He'd aged too, his hands more scarred from years of ranch work, his body carrying a few more aches. But he was still strong, still capable, still the man she'd fallen in love with. Though I have to say, these 15 years have been the best of my life. Every single one of them. Even the year Robert broke his arm falling out of the barn loft and Lily came down with scarlet fever. Emma raised an eyebrow. Even that year, Because we got through it together and everyone was fine in the end. Tyler reached across the table for her hand. Emma, I know I don't say this often enough, but thank you for taking a chance on a dusty cowboy with more hope than sense, for building this life with me, for giving me a family and a home and more love than any man deserves. You deserve all of it and more. Emma's voice was thick with emotion. You've been everything I needed, Tyler. Partner, friend, lover, father of my children. You've supported my dreams, celebrated my successes, held me through my failures. You've been my rock. And you've been my inspiration. The reason I get up every morning eager to face the day. The person I want to tell about everything that happens. The love of my life. Tyler stood and pulled Emma to her feet, gathering her into his arms. Dance with me. There was no music, but they swayed together in the kitchen, moving to a rhythm only they could hear. It was reminiscent of all the evenings they'd spent on the porch, talking and dreaming, except now those dreams had become reality. Do you remember what you said to me that day in the church? Emma asked softly. That you could promise me respect, a home, and your name. Sometimes that's enough to build something real on. I remember. I was terrified you'd say no. You gave me so much more than that, though. You gave me respect, yes, but also admiration. You gave me a home, but also a partnership. You gave me your name, but also your heart. Emma looked up at him. You promised me practical things and gave me romance, passion, deep and abiding love. You exceeded every expectation. That's because you inspired me to be better than I ever thought I could be, Tyler said. You saw potential in a lonely rancher that even he didn't see in himself. You believed in me, in us, when you had every reason not to. They danced until full darkness fell outside, until the candles burned low, and the fire in the hearth reduced to glowing embers. Then Tyler led Emma to their bedroom, the same room where they'd spent their first night as truly husband and wife, and showed her once again what 15 years of practice and deep love could do. The years continued to pass, each one bringing new challenges and joys. The children grew into young adults with their own dreams and ambitions. Tommy married a schoolteacher from town in 1895 and built a house on the far edge of the ranch property, planning to take over operations when Tyler was ready to retire. Lily went to art school in Chicago for 2 years, then returned to Republic to open a combination gallery and dress shop with her mother. Robert traveled the West working on various horse ranches before finally settling down with a girl from Salina. Grace, the youngest, showed an interest in teaching and was studying to become a schoolteacher like her oldest brother's wife. Emma and Tyler watched their children's lives unfold with pride and joy, becoming grandparents for the first time in 1896, when Tommy's wife gave birth to a baby girl. Holding her grandchild for the first time, Emma was transported back to the day Tommy was born, to the wonder and terror and overwhelming love she'd felt. It goes so fast, she said to Tyler that evening as they sat on their porch, a ritual they'd maintained for over 2 decades. I feel like I just blinked and our babies are all grown up with lives of their own. I know, but look at what fine people they've become. We did well, Emma. We raised good, honest, hard-working children who know how to love and be loved. That's the best legacy we could leave. Tyler rocked gently in his chair, looking out at the land he'd worked for so many years. And we still have plenty of time ahead of us. I'm not ready to be put out to pasture yet. Good, because neither am I. Emma reached over and took his hand, their fingers intertwining automatically. I plan on growing old with you, Tyler Zimmerman. Very, very old. It's a date, Tyler said with a smile. As the new century approached, bringing with it changes and challenges neither of them could have imagined back in 1878, Emma and Tyler faced it together. The ranch continued to evolve with the times, incorporating new techniques and technologies. Emma's business adapted too, changing with fashion and customer needs while maintaining the quality and personal service that had made it successful. But through all the changes, one thing remained constant: the love between Emma and Tyler. It had started with a spontaneous proposal in a church, built itself on mutual respect and shared dreams, and grown into something deep and unshakable. They'd weathered difficulties and celebrated triumphs, raised children and built businesses, made a home and a life that exceeded anything either of them had dared hope for. On a warm June day in 1903, Emma and Tyler celebrated their 25th anniversary. The whole family gathered at the ranch for a party that rivaled their vow renewal 20 years earlier. Their children were there with spouses and children of their own. Emma's parents, now quite elderly, sat in places of honor. Friends and neighbors from all over the county came to celebrate the couple who'd become something of a local legend. "Tell us the story again," one of the grandchildren demanded. About how Grandpa saved Grandma at the church. Tyler and Emma exchanged amused glances. The story of their impulsive wedding had taken on almost mythical proportions over the years, growing in romance with each retelling. "Well," Tyler began, pulling Emma close beside him, "it was the summer of 1878, and I was riding into Republic to pick up some supplies. I heard a commotion at the church and went to investigate, and there I found the most beautiful woman I'd ever seen, crying her heart out because some fool had left her at the altar. And Grandpa offered to marry her instead," the child supplied enthusiastically. "That's right. I saw my chance and I took it, asked her to marry me right then and there, even though we barely knew each other." Tyler kissed Emma's temple. "Best impulse decision I ever made." "What did you think, Grandma?" another grandchild asked. Emma smiled, remembering that day so long ago. The humiliation, the heartbreak, the desperate courage it had taken to say yes to a stranger's proposal. "I thought he was either crazy or an answer to a prayer. Turned out he was both." "But you didn't love each other yet," one of the older grandchildren said, clearly skeptical of this part of the story. "No, we didn't," Emma admitted. "Not at first, but we respected each other and we were honest with each other and we built love out of that foundation. Sometimes the best loves aren't the ones that strike like lightning. They're the ones that grow slowly and steadily until they're so deep and strong nothing can shake them." Tyler nodded in agreement. "I told your grandmother that day that I could promise her respect, a home, and my name. Sometimes that's enough to build something real on, and I was right. We built something real, something lasting, something beautiful." "Do you ever see the other man, the one who left Grandma?" a grandchild asked. "Richard Hamilton," Emma shook her head. "He left Republic years ago. I heard he married eventually, moved to California. I hope he's happy. But I'm grateful every day that he walked out of that church because it led me to your grandfather." As the party wound down and the family dispersed to their various homes, Emma and Tyler found themselves alone on their porch once again, watching the sun set over their land. 25 years of sunsets, and somehow each one still felt special. 25 years, Tyler mused. Quarter of a century. Sounds like a long time when you say it like that. "Not long enough," Emma replied, the same thing she'd said at their 5th anniversary. "I want at least 25 more. Deal." Tyler pulled her close and they sat in comfortable silence, watching the sky turn from gold to pink to purple. The evening star appeared, bright and steady on the horizon. "Tyler," Emma said softly, "if you could go back and do it all again, knowing everything that was going to happen, would you still walk into that church?" Tyler didn't even hesitate. "Every time. 1,000 times over. You're the best thing that ever happened to me, Emma. This life we've built, our children, our grandchildren, our love, it's everything I never knew I was missing." "Good answer," Emma said with a smile. She rested her head on his shoulder, breathing in the familiar scent of him, leather and sage and something uniquely Tyler. "Because I'd say yes every time too. To you, to this life, to all of it." They sat on that porch until the stars filled the sky, two people who'd found each other in the most unlikely of circumstances and made a love story for the ages. Not because it was easy or perfect or without challenges, but because they chose each other every single day. Because they built their love on a foundation of respect, honesty, and partnership. Because they turned an impulsive decision made in a moment of crisis into a lifetime of joy and fulfillment. The story of Emma and Tyler Zimmerman would be told and retold in Republic for generations to come. The tale of the bride left at the altar and the cowboy who offered his name instead, and how they built a love that lasted a lifetime. Children would hear it and dream of finding love like that someday. Young couples would use it as inspiration when times got tough. Old-timers would nod and remember when it all happened, back in the summer of 1878. But for Emma and Tyler themselves, it wasn't a story or a legend. It was simply their life, the one they'd built together out of heartbreak and hope, courage and kindness, practical necessity and improbable romance. It was messy and wonderful and perfectly imperfect, and neither of them would have changed a single moment of it. As the years continued to unfold, they grew old together gracefully, hand in hand, partners to the end. Tyler eventually did retire from active ranch work, turning over daily operations to Tommy while he advised and consulted. Emma scaled back her business too, focusing on training the next generation of seamstresses and spending time with her growing number of grandchildren. They celebrated 30 years, then 35, then 40. Each anniversary was marked with joy and gratitude for the gift of time together. They watched their children succeed and sometimes struggle, welcomed new grandchildren and eventually great-grandchildren. They saw Republic grow and change, the wild frontier gradually giving way to settled civilization. Through it all, they remained each other's constant, each other's home. Every evening, weather permitting, they sat on their porch and talked as the sun went down. It became such a known routine that neighbors would sometimes comment on it, saying you could set your clock by the Zimmermans and their porch time. "What do you suppose we'll talk about when we've told each other everything?" Emma asked one evening in their 50th year of marriage. "I don't think that'll ever happen," Tyler replied. He was 80 now, his hair completely silver, his body showing the effects of decades of hard physical work. But his mind was sharp, and his love for Emma as strong as ever. "We could talk every day for 100 years and still find new things to say." Emma, 72 and still beautiful to Tyler's eyes, laughed. "You're probably right, though I have to say, after 50 years, you're getting predictable in some ways." "Predictable how?" "I know that you'll always choose apple pie over any other dessert, that you'll check on the cattle one last time before bed no matter what, that you'll always reach for my hand when we sit together, that you'll tell me you love me at least 3 times a day." Emma smiled. "I like your predictability. And I know that you'll always arrange your sewing supplies in the exact same order, that you'll hum when you're working on a complicated pattern, that you'll sneak extra sugar to the grandchildren when you think I'm not looking, that you'll tell me I'm wonderful even when I'm being difficult." Tyler squeezed her hand. "I like your predictability too." They celebrated their 50th anniversary in the summer of 1928 with a massive party that brought people from all over Kansas. 3 generations of Zimmermans gathered to honor the couple who'd started it all with an impulsive decision in a small church 50 years earlier. Telegrams arrived from friends and family who couldn't attend. The governor of Kansas sent a letter of congratulations. The Republic newspaper ran a special feature on their love story. Standing before their assembled family and friends, Tyler and Emma renewed their vows one final time. Emma wore a dress Lily had made for the occasion, cream-colored silk that was far finer than anything she could have afforded in her youth. Tyler wore his best suit, the one he reserved for special occasions, though he still looked more comfortable in his work clothes. Reverend Matthews had long since passed, so his successor, a young minister named Peterson, performed the ceremony. But the words were the same as they'd been 50 years ago, and they still carried the same weight and meaning. Do you, Emma Rose Zimmerman, still take this man to be your husband? I do. With all my heart, I do. Emma's voice was strong despite her age. And do you, Tyler Joseph Zimmerman, still take this woman to be your wife? I do. Best decision I ever made, and I'd make it again in a heartbeat. When Tyler kissed Emma this time, the entire gathering erupted in applause and cheers. Their children cried happy tears. Their grandchildren whooped and hollered. Their great-grandchildren, too young to fully understand but caught up in the emotion, clapped their little hands. At the reception afterward, people lined up to congratulate them and hear their advice for a lasting marriage. Tyler and Emma, who'd never positioned themselves as experts on anything, found themselves dispensing wisdom they'd learned through 5 decades of partnership. Respect each other, Tyler would say. Even when you disagree, especially when you disagree. Be honest even when it's hard, Emma would add. Lies and secrets poison love. Choose each other every day, they'd say together. Marriage isn't just one decision. It's 1,000 small decisions to stay, to love, to try again tomorrow. As the sun set on their 50th anniversary, Emma and Tyler found themselves on their beloved porch once more, alone for the first time all day. The house was full of family members spending the night, but they'd slipped away for a few moments of quiet together. 50 years, Emma said wonderingly. Tyler, we've been married for 50 years. That's most of our lives. All the good parts of our lives, Tyler corrected. Everything before you was just practice for the real thing. Emma laughed, the same bright laugh that had first caught Tyler's attention all those years ago. You're still a smooth talker, even after all this time. Only for you. Tyler pulled her close, and they swayed together in a slow dance with no music, just as they'd done on their 15th anniversary and countless times before and after. I love you, Tyler Zimmerman. I've loved you for 50 years, and I'll love you for however much time we have left. Emma rested her head against his chest, listening to the steady beat of his heart. I love you too, Emma Zimmerman. You're my heart, my home, my everything. You always have been from the moment I saw you in that church. You always will be until my last breath and beyond. They stood together on that porch as darkness fell and the stars emerged. 2 people who'd beaten impossible odds to build an extraordinary love. They'd started as strangers making a desperate bargain and become soulmates who couldn't imagine life without each other. They'd faced trials and triumphs, raised a family, built businesses, created a legacy that would endure long after they were gone. And through it all, every single day of those 50 years, they'd chosen each other. Chosen to love, to forgive, to try harder, to be better. Chosen partnership over pride, kindness over being right, together over alone. That was the real secret to their success. Not luck or fate or destiny, though those had played their parts, but choice. The daily, deliberate choice to honor the promises they'd made in that church so long ago. when a sobbing bride and a compassionate cowboy had said, "I do," and meant it with everything they had. As Emma and Tyler finally headed inside to join their family, they paused in the doorway and looked back at the porch, the prairie beyond, the stars overhead. This was their kingdom, their legacy, their love made manifest. This ranch, this family, this life they'd built together from nothing but hope and hard work and a willingness to take a chance on each other. "It was a good life," Emma said softly. "The best life," Tyler agreed. "And we're not done yet. We've got more sunsets to watch, more grandchildren to spoil, more years to love each other." "Promise." Emma looked up at him with eyes that still sparkled despite their age. "Promise," Tyler said firmly. "We've got time left, Emma, and I plan to spend every second of it loving you." And he did. They both did. For several more years, they continued their evening ritual on the porch, continued to be the beating heart of their large and loving family, continued to choose each other every single day. They celebrated holidays together, attended grandchildren's weddings, welcomed great-great-grandchildren, and marveled at how much their family had grown from that single impulsive decision in a church on a June day in 1878. Tyler passed first, peacefully in his sleep at the age of 83, with Emma's hand in his just as it had been for 55 years of marriage. His last words were, "I love you," spoken to the woman who'd made his life complete. Emma followed 6 months later, her heart simply unable to go on without her other half. Her children and grandchildren gathered around her bed, and her last words echoed Tyler's. "I love you," meant for all of them, but especially for the cowboy who'd offered his name when she needed it most. They were buried side by side on a hill overlooking the ranch they'd built together, under a sky as vast and blue as their love had been deep and true. Their headstone was simple: Tyler Joseph Zimmerman, 1853–1936. Emma Rose Zimmerman, 1856–1936. Partners in life, partners in love. Together forever, the ranch stayed in the family, passed down through the generations just as Tyler had always hoped. The dress shop continued under Lily's management, and eventually her daughter's. The Zimmerman name became synonymous with quality, integrity, and family values in Republic and throughout Kansas. But more than the material legacy, Tyler and Emma left behind something far more valuable: a love story that inspired everyone who heard it. A reminder that sometimes the best things in life come from the most unexpected places. That love can grow from practical beginnings into something transcendent. That saying, "I do," to someone you barely know can be the bravest and best decision of your life, if you're willing to do the hard work of building a real marriage. Generations later, their story would still be told in Republic. Children would still hear about the bride who was left at the altar and the cowboy who offered his name instead. Young couples would still visit their grave, seeing it as a symbol of lasting love. The porch where they'd spent so many evenings would be preserved as part of the ranch's history, a sacred space where two people had built a lifetime of love, one conversation at a time. And somewhere beyond the stars, two souls danced together eternally, finally free from the constraints of aging bodies, but bound forever by the love they'd chosen, built, and nurtured through 55 years of marriage. Emma and Tyler Zimmerman, the bride and the cowboy, the seamstress and the rancher, the partners who'd proven that sometimes the best love stories start with a simple offer of help and grow into something that transcends time itself. Their love had been real, built on a foundation of respect and watered with daily acts of kindness. It had weathered storms and celebrated sunshine. It had been both ordinary in its daily expression and extraordinary in its depth and duration. It had been, quite simply, Everything that love should be and rarely is. Constant, true, and absolutely worth choosing every single day. And that was how Emma Dawson, left sobbing at the altar on a June day in 1878, became Emma Zimmerman, beloved wife, mother, grandmother, great-grandmother, and proof that sometimes the best things in life come from the moments we think will destroy us. Because in her darkest hour, a cowboy named Tyler had offered his name, and in accepting it, she'd found not just a husband but a true partner, not just a marriage but a great love, not just a life but a legacy that would endure long after they were both gone. Their story ended as all stories must, with death parting what love had joined. But in another sense, their story never ended at all. It lived on in their descendants, in the ranch and business they'd built, in the town they'd helped shape, and in the hearts of everyone who'd ever heard about the bride and the cowboy who'd taken a chance on each other and won everything that mattered.